My mother was obsessed with melodramatic, angsty romance stories. She drugged me and pushed me onto the bed of a promiscuous, wealthy patron. Being a kept woman will eventually lead to true love, she'd say. Just endure 2 years and you'll become legitimate. Then you can live a life of comfort and bliss. After she squandered all the gift money she received from selling me, she forced me into a marriage of convenience with a strange old man. Forced love is the best kind of love, she insisted. Older men are very caring, just try it and you'll see. I resisted in utter despair, only to be beaten to death by the enraged old man. The next time I opened my eyes, I was 14 again, ready to mimic the female lead of an angsty novel who gets pregnant and flees. My mother was dragging me to find the young master of the elite to rekindle an old flame. When you meet your biological father later, cry loudly, act a little pitiful, she instructed. The young master will definitely be like in the novels, pursuing his wife to the ends of the earth, eventually reuniting with his white moonlight. Me, a broken mirror made whole again. I suddenly opened my eyes, finding myself once again at the villa of the young master of the elite. Next to me, the woman who had ruined my entire life was holding my hand, brimming with confidence, ready to claim kinship at the door. I couldn't believe I had been reborn, sent back 10 years. In my past life, I was beaten to death with an iron rod by a corpulent old man in his 50s, and the person who caused all of this was my own mother. My mother, Vivian Lamb, was a bloodthirsty romance novel addict. Her favorites were absurd stories like chasing my wife to the crematorium, pursuing the wife to the end, marriage first, love later, or digging out hearts and kidneys. She didn't just read them herself, she became completely unhinged, determined to turn me into her personal experiment, molding me into the heroine of her angsty dramas. After I graduated high school, she tore up my university acceptance letter, forbidding me from attending college. Instead, she pushed me into the vat of the entertainment industry, appointing herself my manager. She even claimed I was a celestial star descended to Earth, and she would single-handedly turn me into a famous actress. But I had no talent, no connections, I couldn't even land an extra role. So my mother secretly took private photos of me and sent them en masse to prominent figures in the industry. Soon after, a director contacted her, wanting to become my patron. She immediately agreed, took the gift money, and pushed me onto the bed of that sleazy patron to be his kept woman. I was locked up and tormented for 3 days and 3 nights. Finally, covered in bruises, I confronted her, but she declared with unwavering conviction, everything written in novels is true. Being a kept woman will eventually lead to true love. Just endure for a few years and you'll become legitimate. Utterly desperate, I ran up to the director and slapped him 8 times. As a result, I was blacklisted by the entire industry, exiting the entertainment world exactly as I wished. My mother flew into a rage, accusing me of destroying my future and not understanding her pain. Determined to escape her control, I studied hard to retake my university entrance exams. But while I slept, she abducted me and took me to the home of a newly rich man. The old man's face was covered in wrinkles. He had to be at least 50, old enough to be my father. Yet, my mother said, novels are full of stories where marriage comes before love. You may not like him now, but after a few months of living together, you'll fall in love. Forced love, don't you know? It's the most popular trend now. You're too young to understand. Older men are the most loving. I watched numbly as she left with a suitcase full of cash, abandoning me alone in the beast's lair. I tried to escape while the old man wasn't paying attention, but the entire villa was fitted with surveillance cameras. I resisted with all my might, only to be beaten to death by the furious old man with a stick. After I died, my soul floated in the air, watching my mother embrace my corpse, weeping dramatically with crocodile tears. My child, you died such a tragic death. Don't worry, in stories where the protagonist is loved only after death, everything is real. After you die, everyone will come to love you. I will make those men who didn't cherish you regret it to their dying breath. After my body was cremated, she divided my ashes into small packets, sending them individually to my biological father, the director who wanted to be my patron, and the old man who murdered me, who is now in prison. Then she shed her own crocodile tears. From above, I was so enraged my soul nearly disintegrated. I couldn't even reincarnate. Unexpectedly, even the heavens found me too pitiful and granted me rebirth. This time, I stood by her side, coldly observing, pretending to be the same obedient, gentle child, easily manipulated. "You crazy bitch," I thought. "It's time for you to witness true revenge, to see what sweet satisfaction tastes like." At that moment, my mother, Vivian Lamb, stood before the gates of the Luke family villa, pressing the doorbell. A few minutes later, a man with an agile demeanor opened the door. My mother, with her delicate, fragile, white lotus makeup, cried out his name in a sobbing voice. "Marcus Luke, I've been looking for you for so long." Marcus Luke, the young master of the elite, was my biological father. Years ago, my mother, Vivian Lamb, was so infatuated with angsty romance novels and plots where heroines got pregnant and fled that she used every scheme imaginable. She managed to intern at Marcus Luke's company, and one night during overtime, she lured him to a hotel, drugged him, and then stole his sperm. After that incident, Marcus Luke realized something was amiss and ordered his subordinates to dig 3 feet deep, if necessary, to find this audacious woman. My mother, however, quietly disappeared, secretly giving birth to me. That unfortunate child was me. She had originally planned to claim kinship once I was born, but she realized that even if she carried a tiny baby me, the Luke family would definitely not accept an illegitimate child. So she abandoned me with my grandmother, spending her days just lazing around, immersed in novels, fantasizing about being the chosen female lead. When I was in my teens, my face had developed distinct features, resembling Marcus Luke by 70 to 80%. There was no need for a DNA test. Anyone could tell I was his biological child. My mother, Vivian Lamb, finally remembered her pregnant and fleeing scheme and dragged me to cause a scene. At first sight, Marcus Luke was stunned. He racked his brain, finally recalling that absurd night many years ago. However, over a decade had passed. Marcus Luke had long since married, had a loving wife and 3 children. But my mother didn't care. She wailed loudly outside the Luke family home, attracting Mrs. Luke and their children to witness the spectacle. Marcus Luke tried to explain it was a misunderstanding and a trap, but my mother continued to make a fuss, twisting the truth, portraying herself as a pitiful white moonlight who had heartbreakingly gotten pregnant and fled. Marcus Luke, in turn, was painted as a reckless young man who had carelessly abandoned his wife and children. Because she made such a huge commotion, she even attracted the paparazzi lurking nearby. Entertainment reporters sensationalized the story online. This whole affair completely became a scandal for the Luke family. Marcus Luke's relationship with his wife shattered, and they quickly divorced. Although she had managed to oust his legitimate wife, Marcus Luke had absolutely no regard for my mother. Just seeing this deceitful woman annoyed him, let alone making her the lady of the house. My mother's plan failed. She beat me to a pulp, then, feeling I had outlived my usefulness, abandoned me on the Luke family's doorstep. Marcus Luke, seeing a face that resembled his by 70 to 80%, finally softened and adopted me. Because my mother had destroyed their family, the children all hated and ostracized me, never giving me a kind look. I lived in the Luke household, worse than a servant, and was eventually kicked out. But this time, I had seized the opportunity of rebirth. Before my mother could even begin to fabricate her story, I spoke up first to apologize. "Uncle and Auntie, I'm so sorry. My mother is a fraud. Uncle Luke doesn't know her at all. She was never anyone's white moonlight. It was my mother who set a trap, coveting the Luke family's wealth. Now she's forcing me to appear to try and break up your family. Please, don't believe a single word she says." My mother, Vivian Lamb, stared at me in shock, unable to comprehend how her once timid, hesitant daughter dared to defy her. I pretended not to see her frantic signaling and burst into loud sobs directly in front of the Luke family. "Why is she allowed to act like an innocent white lotus, but I can't be a green tea bitch?" My mother shrieked at Marcus Luke. "Don't believe this damn child. She's been a liar since she was little, a deceitful brat." Marcus Luke's face darkened. He slowly said, "She's just a child, so young. How could she lie?" With my turning of the tables, the Luke family finally uncovered the truth. They threw my mother out and, at my suggestion, proactively dealt with the reporters to prevent my mother from continuing to cause a scene. Finally, the entire family's gaze fell on me. I looked too much like Marcus Luke. Although my biological mother was hateful, my birth was not something I could choose. Marcus Luke looked at Mrs. Luke with a hint of reluctance, wanting her opinion. Because I had actively sabotaged my mother's plan, Mrs. Luke didn't hate me as she had in the past life. Instead, she felt sympathy. This child is truly sensible, but her mother is absolutely insane. I wonder if she'll come back to covet our family's assets later. But if we just let her go back, that crazy woman will surely abuse her. The Luke family hesitated for a moment, wanting to help me on one hand, but wary of my identity on the other. To alleviate their concerns, I bowed to them all, speaking the words I had prepared. Uncle and Auntie, I've never thought about becoming a daughter of the Luke family. My mother is truly at fault towards you both. I'm already incredibly grateful that you don't resent me. But I'm genuinely terrified that if I go back home, she'll abuse me to death. So, could I work for your family? My academic performance is quite good. I could be a tutor and earn money to support myself. After everything I'd endured in my past life, I knew perfectly well that I absolutely could not return to that woman's side and continue to be her puppet. But now I was still young, hadn't finished my education, had no standing, and no savings. It would be incredibly difficult to live independently. Temporarily relying on the Luke family was still the best solution for now. After hearing my words, the entire Luke family breathed a sigh of relief. They were very pleased with this arrangement and adopted me. However, the Luke children still harbored some prejudice against me. In my past life, because my mother had torn their family apart, those children had ganged up to bully me. I lived worse than a dog in their house. This time, although they still weren't very welcoming, it wasn't as overt as before. The 3 children, in order from oldest to youngest, were Arthur Luke, Leo Luke, and Lily Luke. Arthur Luke, the eldest son, was cold and indifferent towards me. Lily Luke was the youngest daughter, the family's only treasured little princess. After I arrived, she clearly showed her hostility towards me. As for Leo Luke, I always dared not look him directly in the eye, because in my past life, my mother had done something unforgivable to him. In my past life, after I came to the Luke family, I endured torment from Arthur Luke and Lily Luke. But only Leo Luke, with his exceptionally kind heart, treated me very well. He would often sneak me some delicious food when the other 2 weren't around. Seeing my clothes splattered with paint and dirty water, he would share half of his pocket money with me so I could buy new clothes. I was incredibly grateful to him, but this rare kindness ultimately harmed him. After I became a daughter of the Luke family, my mother still pretended to be a good mother, often checking on me at school, but never once thought of helping me. When she learned that the Luke family's second son, Leo Luke, treated me well, she conceived a wicked scheme. "Incest is truly the best," she exclaimed. "Leo Luke is so good to you, he must like you. Forbidden love between siblings, just thinking about it is beautiful. Mother supports you too." I was terrified by that woman's insane words. I shook off her hand and ran home. After that, I learned to gradually keep my distance from Leo Luke. Although I knew he harbored no dirty thoughts like my mother suggested, I feared misunderstandings and even more, feared being exploited by those with ill intentions. But I still underestimated that woman's moral boundaries. My mother somehow hired someone within the Luke household to put a strong drug into my and Leo Luke's meal, then created an opportunity to lock us in a room. Due to the drug's effects, Leo Luke and I became dizzy and quickly lost consciousness. While we were in a daze, someone secretly stripped us both naked, then left behind a few suggestive props. Finally, they timed it perfectly to lure everyone in the Luke family to the door of the room. When Marcus Luke pushed the door open, Leo Luke and I were lying naked next to each other, surrounded by the entire Luke family's gaze. That was a day I could never forget. Shameless wretch, just like your mother, only knows how to seduce men. Besides selling yourself, what else can you do? I was stripped naked and chased out of the Luke household, surrounded by passers-by on the street. Leo Luke, too, was beaten nearly to death because of this incident, despised by his father, mocked by his siblings, and became the shame of the Luke family. I once again returned to that insane woman's side, so desperate I wanted to end my life. But my mother showed not a single shred of remorse. Instead, she criticized the victim. At first, I misjudged Leo Luke. I thought he was a responsible man. At a time like this, he should have acted like in the novels, cut ties with the Luke family, and bravely pursued true love, instead of being like a dog fallen into water, compromising and giving up. A single, light sentence from her buried the lives of 2 children. After realizing I had been reborn, my first thought was to protect myself, and also to protect Leo Luke, to prevent innocent people from being implicated again. I dared not be careless in the Luke household. I lived each day cautiously, maintaining appropriate distance from the three siblings. But an accident still occurred. One evening during dinner, the maid in charge of cooking suddenly rushed out of the kitchen, falling to her knees on the ground. Foaming at the mouth, she pointed at me and cried, "Miss Lily Luke's rice has been poisoned. Lena did it. I saw her with my own eyes enter the kitchen and put something unclean into the pot." My body stiffened, and I accidentally knocked over the bowls and chopsticks on the table. At that moment, all eyes turned to me. Marcus Luke was the first to react. His face was grim as he ordered his assistant to call an ambulance immediately. The maid, still writhing in pain on the floor, continued to accuse me. Miss Lily Luke's special diet meal was cooked separately from everyone else's dinner. This afternoon, I saw Lena sneak into the kitchen, seemingly putting something into the food. I was afraid there was something wrong with the food, so I decided to taste it myself first, but I didn't expect to be poisoned. She trembled, pointing a finger at me. She definitely put poison in Miss Lily Luke's food. I only tasted a tiny bit and was poisoned. If Miss Lily Luke had eaten the whole meal, I daren't imagine the consequences. Upon hearing her words, Lily Luke's face instantly changed. She looked incredulous, raising her hand as if to slap me. "Lena, our family has treated you well enough and you want to poison me." Marcus Luke, the head of the family, stood beside her, restraining an agitated Lily Luke. Though he appeared calm, suspicion flickered in his eyes. "Lena, I believe you wouldn't do such a thing. Explain yourself first." I nodded in agreement, calmly responding to the maid's accusations. "If you saw me enter the kitchen at that moment, why didn't you stop me immediately? If you saw me put poison in the food, why didn't you report it to everyone right away, instead choosing to try it yourself?" The maid covered her mouth, stammering, "At that time, I wasn't thinking so much, and besides, I never expected you to be so cruel as to use such a strong poison." I let out a cold laugh, continuing my counterattack. "You have no evidence whatsoever, yet you rely on your words alone to fabricate facts and falsely accuse me, trying to pin such a serious crime on me. You think harming others is too simple." The maid said nothing more but began coughing violently, as if trying to conceal something. Her seemingly guilty behavior shifted the Luke family's attitude. Lily Luke, who had been angry moments before, gradually calmed down, apparently realizing she had been too quick to wrongly accuse me. But at that very moment, a cold voice suddenly rang out from behind. The Luke family's eldest son, Arthur Luke, stood at the door to my room, holding a suspicious bag of white powder. "This unknown substance was found in Lena's room," he stated. "Can you explain what this is?" Everyone's gaze simultaneously shifted towards Arthur Luke. Only I clenched my hands, trying to control my complex emotions. In my past life, that cunning little rat hiding in the shadows finally couldn't resist showing himself. Arthur Luke's action once again turned the tables. I was an outsider, but Arthur Luke was the eldest son, highly regarded by the Luke family. The Luke family clearly knew who to trust and who not to. His accusation once again pushed me to the forefront, making me everyone's suspect. I calmly replied, "I've never seen this before. It's very possible the maid wanted to frame me and deliberately planted it in my room." Before I could finish, Arthur Luke coldly cut off my explanation. "Lena, from beginning to end, you've insisted the maid is lying. She's just a cook. What reason would she have to harm you? But you are different. If anything happened to little Lily, you would become the only daughter of the Luke family." Arthur Luke's words shifted the focus to my motive, causing a stir among everyone. Even Marcus Luke, the head of the family, fell silent. In my heart, I knew very well that even without concrete proof, this incident would plant a seed of doubt in the Luke family's hearts. Even if I was completely innocent, they wouldn't keep me in this house like a ticking time bomb that could explode at any moment. Just as the discussion reached an impasse, the second son, Leo Luke, who had remained silent in the crowd, suddenly stepped forward and pulled out his mobile phone. "The incident happened so suddenly just now, I only remembered this now," he said. "Actually, I have complete evidence here that can restore the truth." Leo Luke placed the phone on the table. The fast-forwarded surveillance video showed that I had not stepped into the kitchen at all today. The suspicious packet of powder was, in fact, personally placed into the pot by the maid. After watching the video, everyone's reactions varied. On Marcus Luke and Lily Luke's faces, besides fear, there was also a hint of remorse towards me. The maid, her crime exposed, turned pale and stammered, unable to speak. As for Arthur Luke, who had constantly questioned me, his expression was the most distinctive of all. He couldn't believe the video evidence, turning to Leo Luke and asking, "You installed a camera in the kitchen? Why did you have this video ready?" Leo Luke explained seriously, "A few days ago, my snacks that I kept in the kitchen kept getting stolen. I was worried it was our cat, so I installed a small camera in the kitchen. I didn't expect it to be useful now." Before Arthur Luke could say more, Leo Luke continued, "Now that the truth is clear, I think we should call the police immediately. After all, if this matter had escalated, it could have been fatal." At the mention of "call the police," a flicker of panic clearly crossed Arthur Luke's eyes. He wanted to say something else, but his father, Marcus Luke, cut him off. "This matter ends here. It will now be handed over to the police for a strict investigation." But after the report was filed, the maid adamantly confessed that the entire incident was her doing alone, with no one else involved. As a maid, plotting to poison Miss Lily Luke and framing me. Her motive for the crime was riddled with suspicious points, but ultimately, due to a lack of new evidence, the maid took full responsibility for all the crimes and was sentenced to less than 10 years in prison. But I knew the mastermind behind this was someone else. Since arriving at the Luke family's home, I had never let down my guard, always monitoring my mother's actions. From what I understood of that woman, she would absolutely not give up easily. Indeed, my suspicions were correct. A week before the poisoning incident, I secretly followed my mother, who was acting furtively. I overheard her muttering all the way, "That damned child dared to betray me, and now she's climbing high to become a phoenix. I want to see how the Luke family reacts if this illegitimate brat tries to harm Miss Lily Luke." She cautiously turned into a restaurant and sat opposite a man. I recognized that man. It was Arthur Luke, the Luke family's eldest son. I had actually long suspected that the person who harmed Leo Luke and me in my past life wasn't just my mother. She didn't have enough money or strong connections. She couldn't possibly infiltrate the Luke family and cause trouble, then retreat cleanly on her own. Unless someone within the Luke family helped her. And besides Arthur Luke, I couldn't think of a second person. Because of that incident, his younger brother, Leo Luke, lost his father's trust, while Arthur Luke conveniently became the undisputed heir of the Luke Corporation. It could be said that Arthur Luke was the biggest beneficiary of that year's incident. After my rebirth, I secretly observed him in the Luke household. Sure enough, just as I predicted, Arthur Luke and my mother had reached some sort of cooperative agreement. After learning of their plan, I decided to use their scheme against them and fabricated a reason to ask Leo Luke to help install miniature cameras in the kitchen. Initially, I didn't tell Leo Luke the specific reason, because he and Arthur Luke were biological brothers. If I had tried to sow discord without evidence at that time, it would likely have made him resentful and suspicious. The best approach was to speak with facts, and Arthur Luke, being impetuous, had clearly revealed several flaws in this incident. After the maid was arrested, Leo Luke proactively contacted me. "Lena, you asked me to install cameras and prepare in advance. Did you already discover something? Is this incident related to Arthur Luke?" I frankly admitted everything I knew, except for my rebirth, to Leo Luke. "Arthur Luke and my mother collaborated and reached some kind of agreement. My mother wants to ruin my life, and your brother wants to ruin yours to become the sole heir of the Luke family. This poisoning plot was orchestrated by the two of them. It's just that Arthur Luke must have used a lot of money to silence the maid." After hearing my conclusion, Leo Luke didn't show the surprise I expected. Instead, he let out a self-deprecating laugh and said softly, "I never even thought about competing with him." When he looked up again, his eyes had changed. They were no longer soft but sharp and resolute. "But if my brother wants to compete with me, then I'll play his game." Leo Luke's sudden change made me feel as if the person standing before me had become someone else entirely. I tentatively asked, "I'm just an outsider, an illegitimate child in others' eyes, and Arthur Luke is your full brother, born of the same parents. Yet you believe my words just like that?" To my surprise, Leo Luke's next sentence sent a shiver down my spine. "Lena, do you think you're the only one who has been reborn?" Leo Luke's question startled me for a moment. I instinctively wanted to refute him, but seeing his expression, I knew it would be futile. It turned out he had already noticed my abnormality. "You probably didn't realize that when I realized I was reborn, my first thought was to find you for revenge." Leo Luke let out a self-deprecating laugh, as if recalling the scandal that had ruined his entire life in the past. "I always thought it was your fault, believing my kindness had been met with shameless betrayal. But it wasn't until I saw you expose your mother at the Luke family's door that I realized things might not be as simple as I thought. Leo Luke, reborn at that very moment, harbored suspicions. Perhaps he wasn't the only one reborn, and perhaps the mastermind behind the scandal that harmed him wasn't me either. Leo Luke decided to follow the same plan as in his past life, acting and concealing his identity. He still treated me kindly, but this time, to avoid implicating him, I carefully maintained my distance. This further confirmed Leo Luke's suspicions. It wasn't until I proactively contacted him, fabricating a clumsy reason, hoping he could help install cameras, that Leo Luke realized I was very likely also searching for the truth of that year. Therefore, he didn't hesitate to agree to my request and secretly observed everything. Finally, when Arthur Luke revealed his flaws, Leo Luke proactively presented the evidence, clearing my name in time. After Leo Luke finished recounting his thought process, he extended his right hand to me. An eye for an eye, that's my principle. Do you want to become my ally and eradicate our common enemies together? Without a moment's hesitation, I firmly grasped the hand he offered. Of course. The price they have to pay, the debts from our past lives and this one, will settle them together. After forming our alliance, Leo Luke and I devised a detailed counterattack plan. We decided to use their scheme against them, no longer deliberately avoiding each other, but instead, just like in my past life, we continued to act as siblings with an overly close relationship, allowing my mother to pull her old tricks again. At the same time, I also did something else. I mended my sisterly relationship with Lily Luke. Through daily observations and Leo Luke's probing, I could confirm that Lily Luke's hostility towards me largely stemmed from Arthur Luke's instigation and provocation. He deliberately fabricated stories in front of Lily Luke, claiming I wanted to seize their family's assets, using my illegitimate status to replace the Luke children's positions. Lily Luke, having trusted her elder brother implicitly since childhood, easily believed Arthur Luke's lies without much thought. But this time, I had Leo Luke as an ally. Compared to the reticent eldest brother, Arthur Luke, Lily Luke actually trusted the gentle, considerate second brother, Leo Luke, more. Last time, Lily Luke had misunderstood me and already felt a bit guilty. Not to mention, Leo Luke pointed out the problem profoundly. He had always wondered how his eldest brother had managed to find that suspicious packet of powder in Lena's room so quickly that day. Lily Luke, though young, was a child capable of thought. She quickly understood Leo Luke's implication, her expression gradually shifting from confusion to fear. The reliable, composed eldest brother she had always believed in could actually collude with outsiders to scheme, not even shying away from toying with his own sister's life. Leo Luke had done some ideological work with Lily Luke, telling her not to act abnormally and to continue treating Arthur Luke as before. To appease Lily Luke and foster our relationship, I came up with another trick, teaching her to dance. Lily Luke had recently become obsessed with girl groups, and in my past life, my mother had coincidentally forced me to train as an idol trainee. Although my memory wasn't the best, teaching a child was still manageable. So, I used the few cat tricks I'd learned from my past life and quickly won over the Luke family's younger sister. Although privately she had started calling me Teacher Lena, outwardly, we still pretended as if we never interacted. To outsiders, Lily Luke continuously targeted me, using every means to isolate and bully me. As for Leo Luke, he displayed his little son qualities, being gentle with me and shining light on me. Very quickly, Arthur Luke couldn't sit still any longer. One day, Lily Luke hid under the table and personally witnessed him pouring a colorless, unknown liquid into my and Leo Luke's glasses. Hearing is one thing, but seeing is believing, she realized. At this moment, she was finally certain that her brother Arthur Luke was indeed setting up a grand scheme. Lily Luke ran to us in a panic to report. Leo Luke calmly comforted her. Don't be afraid. Later, just hide in the closet and absolutely don't let anyone find you. The little girl nodded obediently, her eyes no longer panicked but instead held a hint of excitement, like she was on an adventure to defeat a boss. Next, Leo Luke and I pretended to drink the drugged water, then in a daze were pulled by Arthur Luke, our clothes unbuttoned, and pushed into a room. Separated by a wall, Arthur Luke calculated the time for the drug to take effect. When he heard indistinct sounds emanating from the room, he immediately informed everyone in the Luke household to come and witnessed the results of his elaborate plan. Marcus Luke stood at the door, his expression changing unpredictably, while Arthur Luke, like a triumphant eunuch, ingratiatingly kicked the door open. The moment the door burst open, everyone inside and outside the room stared at each other in bewilderment. The scene Arthur Luke had hoped for was nowhere to be found. Leo Luke, Lily Luke, and I were all doing leg stretches on the floor, groaning in pain and discomfort. "We're practicing martial arts. Why are you all violently breaking down the door?" Lily Luke stood up, wincing, and glared angrily at her father, Marcus Luke, and eldest brother, Arthur Luke, standing outside the door. Marcus Luke's expression became somewhat profound. His face was gloomy as he motioned for the instigator, Arthur Luke, to explain himself. "Arthur Luke, just now, weren't you so certain someone in this room was doing something improper?" Arthur Luke was in a panic. He had come to catch us in the act, but he couldn't understand why his plan had gone wrong. He stammered, "Perhaps I misheard. It's my fault. I usually see Leo Luke and Lena being overly close, so I misunderstood." He found a clumsy excuse to defend himself, finally not forgetting to sneer, implying that Leo Luke and I were not innocent. Hearing this, I couldn't help but continue to taunt him. "Leo Luke and I are overly close? Arthur Luke, what exactly did you misunderstand?" Arthur Luke, as if clutching at a straw, latched onto this point and wouldn't let go. "That's right, you two are even closer than biological siblings. Anyone who didn't know would think you were lovers." He shifted his gaze to his younger sister, Lily Luke, as he used to. "You're trying to incite her, aren't you? Little Lily, you must stay away from the two of them or people will talk." Lily Luke smiled obediently, giving Arthur Luke a terrifying answer. "Brother, I think everyone far away from you is the safest." Arthur Luke's face, from his neck up, turned liver-colored. He asked Lily Luke, bewildered, "What do you mean by that? Am I not the one who's always been best to you?" Lily Luke tilted her head, pulling out a pile of pink props from her bag. "Really? Then why did you give these things to me to play with?" Seeing clearly what his daughter held in her hand, Marcus Luke, who had remained silent beside them, finally couldn't contain his rage. In front of everyone, he punched his eldest son, Arthur Luke, in the face. Arthur Luke still didn't give up, tearing off his mask directly, clutching his father's shoes, and loudly pleading, "I know, those three ganged up to frame me. Father, they want to seize the family assets, so they deliberately set a trap for me. Please believe me." I said nothing, simply standing quietly beside Leo Luke. He looked at Arthur Luke with eyes that seemed to behold a pile of stinking garbage. "Arthur Luke, haven't you been the only one coveting the family assets from the very beginning? You orchestrated that poisoning attempt to get rid of Lena. After that failed, you then schemed to drug Lena and me, locking us in a room when no one was looking, then brought everyone to witness it." Arthur Luke's eyes shifted from frantic to terrified. He trembled, helplessly refuting, "No, how did you know? You have no evidence." Leo Luke's next words dealt him a fatal blow. "We saw through your plan long ago. There are cameras installed both inside and outside the room. All your actions have been recorded. Last time we couldn't catch your evidence, but this time, your crimes are clear as day. Trash should return to where it belongs." After the drama concluded, Leo Luke handed the camera evidence to his father, Marcus Luke. Coupled with Lily Luke's and my testimonies, Arthur Luke couldn't deny anything. Considering their blood ties, Marcus Luke sent him to a city thousands of miles away, providing only necessary living expenses. As for the ambition and intelligence of his other son, Leo Luke, Marcus Luke secretly took note of it in his heart. As a father, Marcus Luke didn't object to his children having ambition, but to inherit his legacy, one first needed to possess basic human decency. Leo Luke was an impeccable fit. Now, Leo Luke had achieved his major revenge, but my own progress was only halfway complete. My mother, Vivian Lamb, that woman seemed crazy, but she was actually extremely cunning. In both incidents, she hadn't participated in the actual criminal acts, managing to escape cleanly herself. But now, her ally, Arthur Luke, had become a useless pawn, and I, in the Luke household, had gained the trust and help of both siblings. It seemed she had reached a dead end, but when people are cornered, they often choose to fight desperately, making a final gamble. I was waiting for her to deliver herself to me, and she did not disappoint. One day, as I walked through the school gate as usual, I found myself the center of everyone's attention. I knew she had begun her move. I pushed through the crowd to the school's propaganda wall. Posters plastered everywhere appeared before my eyes, all of them featuring my photos alongside humiliating captions. I couldn't help but feel a little amused. When I was younger, she had taken so many private, unpublishable photos of me. She used these pictures to brainwash me from childhood, making me live in the shadows of self-shame, controlling me my entire life. Mother, you haven't made any progress compared to your past life, but I am different now. I knew I had done nothing wrong. I wasn't the one who needed to apologize. I wasn't the one who needed to be ashamed. I was the innocent victim. I didn't have responsible parents who loved me, but equal law would protect me. I took my phone out of my pocket in front of all the curious classmates watching and dialed the number. Hello, I'd like to report a crime. Someone has used AI software to superimpose my face onto many sensitive images and posted them in public, causing me extreme distress and trouble. I hope the perpetrator can be apprehended quickly so they can face appropriate punishment. I calmly reported the situation to the other end of the line. After hanging up, the curious crowd around me had dispersed considerably. A group of unfamiliar female students stood on their tiptoes, helping me tear down the posters from the wall. My usually strict but gentle homeroom teacher handed me a packet of tissues, telling me that the school had already extracted surveillance camera footage and was thoroughly investigating the incident, assuring me they would definitely clear my name. Across the school building, Lily Luke ran to my side, saying she had asked for leave and wanted to take me home. I suddenly felt the long empty void in my chest finally being filled by something soft. After the report was filed, the police quickly got involved. The school also actively cooperated, and the main culprit was arrested in less than a day. My mother, Vivian Lamb, sat behind bars, continuously repeating one phrase, "My daughter, everything I did was for your own good." She still maintained her earnest, persuasive demeanor from before. "I've read more books than you've eaten rice. Everything written in novels is true. Once you fall into despair, a male lead will descend from the heavens to save you. Why did you call the police? If you just endured a little longer, you could have waited for your destined one." Her words made the police officers present frown, scolding her to stop talking nonsense. I sat by the visiting window, my reaction utterly calm, creating a stark contrast to her madness. "Vivian Lamb, you're not truly infatuated with novels. You're only infatuated with controlling other people's lives, treating me as a puppet, a tool to satisfy your own desires." This was the first time I had called her by her full name, and it was my final severance from her. For the rest of your life, you can be the heroine of your own story, but be prepared, your script doesn't have many options. The woman opposite cried, calling my pet name, begging me to sign the withdrawal of the lawsuit. I shook my head, taking out a parent-child severance agreement from my bag. "Vivian Lamb, I don't have a mother like you. This is the end for us." Vivian Lamb shook her head frantically, unable to understand why the daughter who once let her dictate her life had become so resolute. She bent her fingers, seemingly counting all the things she had done that might move me to prove her maternal love. But even as I turned my back and left, I could still only hear that revolting phrase from her mouth. "Everything Mother did was for your own good." Vivian Lamb's crime of privacy invasion and dissemination wasn't punished too severely. However, under police arrangements, she underwent several psychiatric evaluations. The results showed she suffered from a serious mental illness and required mandatory hospitalization. She could only be discharged after completing her treatment. Upon her admission, the Luke family specifically instructed the hospital to take good care of Vivian Lamb. Few months later, when I visited her again, she was huddled on the dirty floor, wearing worn-out patient clothes, ceaselessly muttering to herself. "How could you treat me like this? I am the female lead, the heroine of an angsty drama. If anything happens to me, men will surely come to avenge me." I placed a bouquet of white chrysanthemums on her bed, calmly humoring her. Yes, that's what all the novels say." "Oh, right. Have you read the genre where the protagonist is only loved after they die? If you jump off the rooftop first and die, those who never cared about you will definitely regret it." Upon hearing the word die, Vivian Lamb immediately shook her head vigorously. "I won't die. You are a wicked woman, don't try to trick me. I'm not that easily fooled," I sighed. "See, everyone, even insane, she instinctively knows what to do and what not to do. In truth, she always understood everything but still treated me as an experiment, a toy without her own personality." Of course, I didn't want her to die now. I hoped she would be confined here for the rest of her life, losing her freedom and living in misery until old age. I left my final farewell and departed without a trace of lingering attachment. After Vivian Lamb was admitted to the mental hospital, the stone that had always hung in my heart could finally settle peacefully. I returned to school, continued to study diligently, and spent my entire high school years harmoniously with the two Luke siblings. After the university entrance exam results were released, I became the top scorer in the entire city. On the day I received my results, Marcus Luke, the head of the Luke family, called me to his study for a private talk. He hoped I could transfer my household registration to the Luke family, officially becoming his daughter. This would mean I, like Leo Luke and Lily Luke, would become a legal heir to the Luke family. The conditions were very appealing, but after expressing my gratitude, I declined his offer. Because in my heart, I knew very well this wasn't a heartwarming story of blood relations, but a struggle for interests. Marcus Luke was merely recognizing my aptitude, hoping to cultivate me into Leo Luke's assistant. Having been controlled by Vivian Lamb for so many years, I never wanted to live a life I couldn't control myself again. After learning of my choice, Marcus Luke, though a little surprised, chose to understand and support me. After I came of age, I immediately requested to change my surname. My surname, Lamb, was that of Vivian Lamb, but I no longer wanted any connection to her. I changed my name from Lena to Lena. The character, Lamb, Lynn, implies standing on a peak. I hope to forever retain the will and courage of standing on the highest mountain and looking down, surveying everything. During college, relying on some experience and insight gained from my past life in the entertainment industry, I chose to start a venture in the cultural and entertainment sector. After accumulating a certain amount of capital, I repaid the Luke family all the money they had spent on me in previous years, both principal and interest. As an elder, Marcus Luke naturally refused. I then converted that money into equivalent expensive gifts for the two Luke siblings, insisting that they accept them. After I became independent, Leo Luke and Lily Luke still kept in touch with me. Leo Luke interned at Marcus Luke's company, learning business management. Lily Luke also fulfilled her dream, shining brightly in a talent show, becoming a dazzling idol star. When Leo Luke and I went to visit the big star, Lily Luke, I saw a familiar face in the crowd. After thinking hard, I remembered it was the director patron that Vivian Lamb had found for me in my past life. At this moment, he was flaunting his beer belly, using his greasy hands to embrace the waist of some unknown actress. I frowned in disgust. Lily Luke, who had just run over to greet us, caught my expression. "Lena, do you know him?" I denied it. "No, I just simply dislike this type of sleazy man. He didn't do anything to you, did he?" Lily Luke shook her head. "Who is he anyway? If he dared to do anything to me, I would have blacklisted him long ago." I casually asked, "You're so powerful you can blacklist a director?" Lily Luke replied without any pretense, "Yes, Father has given me full management authority over the company's entertainment and cultural sector." I couldn't help but sigh in admiration inwardly. She truly was the little princess of the elite. Lily Luke seemed to have caught the hidden meaning in my words. "Lena, don't be shy. Do you want me to blacklist him?" With the words already spoken, I naturally followed the current and pushed the boat, accepting her favor. "Blacklist him. Thank you, little princess." The little princess was overjoyed, as it was the first time I had asked her for help. Lily Luke's efficiency was also incredibly fast. The very next day, that fat director was exposed and trended on social media, disappearing without a trace thereafter. Even those minor figures had received their retribution. The old man had no reason to escape either. I had someone investigate his company. He ran a small company, making a fortune thanks to industry opportunities. Now, he was exploiting employees to continue expanding his assets. I unceremoniously forwarded his company's information to the big boss, Leo Luke, with the message, "It's getting cold, time for him to go bankrupt." The other end of the line replied in a flash, "Got it." 3 days later, the old man's company declared bankruptcy. As expected of the young master, his efficiency was no less than that of the little princess. I stood up from my desk, preparing to chair the department's next major meeting. As I walked past an intern secretly looking at her phone, I stood behind her and watched for a few more seconds. The young girl quickly recognized I was behind her, her face filled with panic as she put her phone away, apologizing repeatedly. "I'm sorry, Lena, I was wrong. I won't be lazy anymore." I quickly waved my hand, telling her not to be so nervous. "It's okay." It's understandable that when people are bored, they like to read these melodramatic novels to pass the time. After saying this, I suddenly recalled some distant, unimportant memories, some experiences I had long discarded from my mind, and some names not worth mentioning. The script of my life before the age of 24, I had successfully rewritten it to a perfect conclusion. There was no need to look back with lingering attachment. But the unknown life thereafter still held countless answers and possibilities. I bowed my head, revealing a subtle smile that only I could see, then firmly stepped forward.